I don't just clean floors. I'm building my future.
Imagine walking into a mansion late at night and spotting the cleaner sitting quietly in the dark, reading from a worn-out book by the faint glow of his phone. A millionaire, stunned by what he sees, decides to step closer. But what happens next, you'll never guess. Stay with me till the end of this story, and if you love inspiring stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and share. The story begins in the quiet suburbs of a bustling city, where Mr. Adrian Cole, a self-made millionaire, lives in a grand mansion. Known for his sharp business sense and relentless drive, Adrian had built his empire from scratch. Yet, despite his wealth, there was one thing he never seemed to notice: the silent people who worked behind the scenes in his home. Among them was Daniel, the night cleaner. Daniel was humble, soft-spoken, and almost invisible to most who passed him by. Every evening he would arrive just before sunset, mop the marble floors, polish the furniture, and make sure the house gleamed like new by morning. No one paid much attention to him, except for his punctuality and quiet discipline. But what Adrian didn't know was that Daniel carried a secret. Beneath his calm routine, he harbored a burning dream. Daniel wanted to be an engineer. He came from a poor neighborhood where opportunities were scarce, but his hunger for knowledge was greater than any obstacle. Without enough money to afford college or even proper lights at home, Daniel would often sneak in a little extra time at work, finding quiet corners where he could read and study. And on one particular night, when Adrian returned earlier than expected, that hidden world of Daniel's was about to be revealed. What Adrian saw that evening would change not just Daniel's life, but his own understanding of success, privilege, and the true meaning of opportunity. The stage was set. The millionaire was about to witness something unforgettable. It was late, almost midnight, when Adrian returned home from a business meeting. His car rolled silently into the driveway, the mansion lights still dimmed. As he stepped inside, he expected the usual emptiness of his massive home. But something felt different. From down the hallway, a faint glow flickered. Curious, Adrian walked quietly toward the source. And there, sitting on the floor near the utility closet, was Daniel, the cleaner. He wasn't mopping. He wasn't scrubbing. Instead, he was hunched over a notebook, eyes locked on the pages of an engineering textbook, using nothing but the weak light of his phone screen to read. Adrian froze. A rush of thoughts hit him. Was this man slacking off on my time? Was he stealing hours that I paid for? His instinctive reaction wasn't admiration, it was irritation. Daniel! Adrian's sharp voice echoed through the hall. Startled, Daniel jumped, the book slipping from his hands. He quickly tried to stand, stammering, "Sir, I was just—" Adrian's eyes narrowed. "Just what? Wasting time? I pay you to clean, not to sit around with your little hobby." His words cut like a blade, heavy with insult. Daniel lowered his gaze, clutching the book to his chest as if it were something sacred. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean any disrespect. I don't have light at home, and this is the only quiet place I get to study." His voice trembled, but his sincerity was clear. Adrian scoffed. "Study? For what? You think reading a few pages in the dark will make you something you're not? Dreams don't pay bills, Daniel. Hard work does. Stick to what you're meant for." The insult landed hard. For the first time, Daniel's usually calm face showed a flicker of pain, but behind his hurt eyes there was also determination. In that moment, a silent war began, between Adrian's cold practicality and Daniel's relentless hope. Neither of them knew it yet, but this confrontation was just the beginning of a chain of events that would challenge both their beliefs. The air inside the hallway grew heavier after Adrian's harsh words. Daniel bent down to pick up his notebook, his hands trembling while Adrian stood tall, arms crossed, his expression cold. But then, instead of leaving, Adrian pressed further. "Tell me, Daniel, what exactly do you think all this studying will lead to? Do you imagine yourself sitting in an office giving orders? Do you really believe the world will hand you that chance?" Daniel swallowed hard. For a moment he wanted to stay silent to avoid trouble, but something inside him refused to bow down. "Sir," he said softly, "I don't expect the world to hand me anything. That's why I work all night. And study whenever I can. Because if I give up now, then I'll have nothing at all." The word surprised Adrian. He wasn't used to being spoken to with such quiet conviction, but instead of showing it, he scoffed, masking his intrigue with arrogance. "You sound naive," Adrian replied sharply. "The world isn't fair. People like me climb because we're ruthless. People like you just clean up after us." Daniel's jaw tightened, but his voice didn't waver. "Maybe, sir, but I believe knowledge changes people, and one day I'll use mine to change my life." A silence followed. For a split second, Adrian almost admired him, but he quickly brushed the thought aside. He didn't want to admit a cleaner had touched a nerve. As Adrian turned to leave, a new twist unfolded. He noticed the book Daniel had been reading. Advanced Engineering Mathematics. It wasn't a simple novel or light reading. It was dense, complicated, something even university students struggled with. Adrian paused, his curiosity fighting with his pride. He picked up the book, flipping through the pages, noticing the handwritten notes scribbled in the margins. These weren't the notes of a dreamer, they were the marks of someone genuinely learning. The tension grew. Adrian looked back at Daniel, still clutching his mop. For the first time, Adrian wasn't sure what to say. And for Daniel, the night suddenly felt like the moment his secret could either destroy him or open a door he had never imagined. Adrian stood frozen, the heavy textbook in his hand. The weight of it was more than paper and ink. It was a silent declaration of Daniel's fight against his circumstances. "Where did you even get this?" Adrian asked, his voice low, almost doubtful. Daniel hesitated before answering. "From a second-hand market, I saved every spare coin I had, skipped meals sometimes, just to buy it." His words were simple, but they carried a gravity that hung in the air. Adrian didn't reply. For the first time, the millionaire who always had an answer, always knew what to say in meetings, was struck speechless. Daniel continued quietly, almost as if speaking to himself. "I know I'm just a cleaner here, but when I read these pages, I feel like I belong to a different world. A world where my hands don't just clean floors, but build something greater." The silence was deafening. Adrian's gaze shifted between Daniel's determined eyes and the book in his own hands. And then, his phone buzzed. A new business deal notification flashed on the screen. He should have walked away. He should have dismissed the moment. But for some reason, he didn't. Instead, he asked a question he never thought he would. "Daniel, what exactly do you want to become?" Daniel's eyes lit up even in the dim hallway. "An engineer, sir. I want to design bridges, machines, buildings, things that outlast me. I want my work to mean something." For the first time that night, Adrian felt a strange twist in his chest. The words reminded him of his own younger self, hungry, desperate, dreaming, bigger than his reality allowed. But before he could speak further, the power suddenly went out. The mansion was thrown into complete darkness. Daniel's phone light flickered and died. Silence swallowed them both. And in that pitch-black moment, something unexpected was about to happen. Something that would change the course of both their lives. The mansion lay in complete darkness. Adrian's first instinct was annoyance. "Great, just what I needed," he muttered, fumbling for his phone flashlight. But beside him, Daniel stayed calm. "Don't worry, sir," Daniel said gently. "I know my way around here even in the dark. I can guide you." Adrian hesitated, then nodded. As they slowly walked through the dim hallways, Daniel led confidently, avoiding furniture and obstacles with ease. Adrian couldn't help but notice how resourceful the young man was, how he didn't panic, how he adapted without complaint. Finally, they reached the backup power switch in the basement. Daniel crouched down, carefully fixing the loose wiring. Adrian watched, surprised. You know how to do this?" "Ooh." Daniel gave a small smile. I learned from books, sir, and from watching tutorials on old library computers. I've been teaching myself basic electrical repairs. It's not perfect, but it works. A moment later, with a loud click, the lights flickered back on. The mansion glowed again. Adrian stood stunned. Here was a man with almost nothing, no resources, no privilege, yet he was teaching himself skills that even trained workers sometimes struggled with. Daniel, Adrian began but paused, unsure how to frame his words. He cleared his throat. Why didn't you ever tell anyone? Why hide it? Daniel's expression softened. Because, sir, most people laugh. They think it's ridiculous for someone like me to dream of becoming more. So I stay quiet. I study in the shadows. And I hope one day my work will speak louder than my position. The words struck Adrian harder than he expected. They reminded him of his own early struggles. When investors dismissed him when he was told he'd never make it. He had built his empire because he refused to listen to them. And now standing before him was someone living that same fight. A silence stretched between them. Then, with a sudden decision, Adrian said, Daniel, show me your notes. Confused, Daniel handed over his worn-out notebook. Adrian flipped through it, page after page filled with equations, diagrams, problem-solving steps. The handwriting wasn't perfect, but the effort was undeniable. You've been doing this all by yourself? Adrian asked. Daniel nodded. Yes, sir. I can't afford classes, so I learn however I can. Adrian closed the notebook and took a deep breath. For the first time in years, he felt humbled. He looked Daniel in the eye and said, You're not just a cleaner, you're a builder, you're a fighter, and fighters, they deserve a chance. Daniel blinked, unsure if he'd heard correctly. Sir? Adrian continued, his voice steady. Now, from tomorrow you'll still work here, but not just as a cleaner. I'll cover your evening classes, engineering school, and when you're ready, you'll intern at one of my companies. No more studying in the dark. If you're willing to put in the work, I'll open the doors. For a long moment, Daniel stood frozen, his eyes wide, his hands trembling. Then slowly his eyes filled with tears. Sir, I don't know what to say. Don't thank me, Adrian said firmly. Thank yourself. You earned this. You forced me to see something I'd forgotten. That true greatness isn't about where you start, but how far you're willing to climb. That night, the mansion no longer felt like just a house. For Adrian, it became a reminder that wealth meant little if it didn't lift others. And for Daniel, it became the place where his life took a turn he never thought possible. What began as a harsh confrontation ended as a promise, a bridge between privilege and perseverance, between doubt and destiny.
If this story touched your heart, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories like this. And tell me in the comments, what did you learn from Daniel's journey?